Hello, everyone. Paulo Figueiredo here, and I'm starting this series interviewing people that I think are very interesting, people that know stuff that we don't. And I decided to start interviewing someone that I met a couple of years ago when I was in need of some good information. So we're going to talk today with Michelle Eslan. She's an attorney specialized in Interpol. She has been doing that for over a decade. And everybody is very interested on Interpol. We have seen Interpol becoming more and more important in world politics. This is especially relevant for us in Brazil because we've been, well, first of all, the next chief or director of Interpol will be a Brazilian guy, but also we've been seeing more and more people being put on the red notice list by the Brazilian Supreme Court for crimes that are considered political crimes. So, and this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on how Interpol works and on what Interpol is. So, Michelle, thank you so much for doing this interview. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you too.
So it's a funny story that we met. The way we met was very interesting because it was 2019. I was on the Interpol red notice list, and I spent 9 months there. It was not fun, and it was one of the hardest thing was to get information on what did that mean. And I was already here in the United States. I talked to, I would say, almost a dozen of criminal attorneys.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Before we met.
And they had absolutely no clue on how that works.
Yeah.
And until one day, I was talking to a big shot here in Miami, and he was like, you know what? The only person that you were actually lucky because she's in Miami. The only person that can help you is I'm going to give you her contact. And then we met. And what was absolutely amazing is that you were very clear to me, and everything that you said happened. So, and of course it wasn't good. But it's better when you know what's coming.
Sure, that's what I think. I think it's better when you can prepare at least mentally for what's down the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when the other people in Brazil, I have a very good friend, a journalist from Brazil, is one of the most censored journalists in the world. He came here to the United States, and he's currently on the red notice, we think. And I told him everything that was going to happen to him, and he could prepare for that. And that was because of you, because you taught me.
Opa, desculpe interromper o seu vídeo, mas desde 2022 eu continuo com as contas bloqueadas e o passaporte cancelado pelo Xandão. Se você aprecia o meu trabalho e tudo que eu faço pela liberdade de expressão, tem um lugar onde você pode se tornar meu apoiador com uma pequena quantia por mês. Acesse www.paulofigueiredoshow.com e torne-se meu apoiador, e aí você vai receber conteúdos exclusivos e desconto nos meus cursos. Ou então você pode se tornar meu patrono Gold e passar a me pautar, tem reuniões comigo, você entra para o meu grupo de WhatsApp que eu uso sempre. O link para tudo isso está aí na descrição.
I think the way I would like to start is asking you, what exactly is Interpol? Because it's not a governmental agency.
Right.
It's not a company as well, is it?
No, right.
What is it?
So Interpol is, as you said, it's a non-governmental organization. It's an international organization that offers the service of data keeping. Well, for purposes of this conversation, this is the most important service that it offers, is data keeping and data sharing for its member countries. And what that means is if you're one of its 195 member countries, and you've got a person who is alleged to have committed a crime in your country, let's say murder, right? Let's say there's a murder that's been committed in one country and the person is believed to have absconded, have fled the jurisdiction for another country. The idea is that if the country where the person is wanted shares that information, shares the fact that there's an outstanding arrest warrant with Interpol. Interpol is based in Lyon, France. That Interpol will then circulate that information to all of the other member countries. The idea is that it makes it easier for the wanted person to be found and to be stopped. And every member country has a decision to make then. Once they come across that wanted person, what do? They're not obliged to detain them, to extradite them, to do anything. But if they're in Interpol, the idea is that you're going to cooperate with each other. So if your domestic laws allow for it and provide for it, then you're going to follow whatever path it takes in your country to let the other country know, hey, we've got this person. What would you like us to do? And eventually it would lead to extradition. That is not always the way that it happens, but that's the way that the system is set up for the purposes of this conversation. Interpol also does other things, like it helps educate police departments in different jurisdictions on how to more effectively combat certain types of crimes. And it also works, they do kind of like multi-jurisdictional efforts whenever there's some big thing, a human trafficking event or a big drug trafficking problem in one country. They assist with multi-jurisdictional efforts to combat that particular crime or set of crimes or phenomenon that's going on. So it's meant to support law enforcement in general. And there's all kinds of different projects that it undertakes, short-term and long-term. I think that the reason I get involved most of the time is because somebody is wanted on the Interpol wanted list and they feel that they should not be. Usually if they feel that it's legitimate, that there's a red notice that's been issued legitimately, they don't come looking for help. They just stay hidden.
I want to get into the woods on all that, but I found it fascinating the way you described Interpol as a data sharing non-governmental organization.
Yes.
So it's because the name is sort of misleading because Interpol, and then we watched the movie. I was telling you, I watched the Red Notice movie with Dwayne Johnson, and then you see why. Wow, you have all these. First of all, they all look great, right?
Right.
They all look great. And then you see them shooting and exploding stuff in the movies. In I think on the Red Notice is like in Egypt, or it's like, wow, these guys are like international police that can do whatever they want.
No.
And it's not like that, right?
No, it's not like that.
It's a data sharing NGO.
It's a data sharing organization that actually operates in Lyon, France under a headquarters agreement. It has authority to operate there by permission of France, but is not necessarily subject to French law.
Okay.
So when you talk about the agents, the individual Interpol officers, that's not a thing, right?
Oh, it's not a thing.
That's not a thing. So
there's no.
They're not running.
Dwayne Johnson's
no, no. And Interpol is very clear about this, that there are no agents running around enforcing the law. They're sharing the information that will allow local jurisdictions, local departments to enforce their law. So, for example, here in the United States, if somebody were wanted and were the subject of a red notice from, say, Italy, it would be up to the local authorities to decide, are we going to issue an arrest warrant domestically in order to capture the person, in order to either, typically move towards extradition proceedings, or are we not? There's nobody from Interpol proper in Lyon, France, who's going to come over here into the United States and enforce the law of Italy. That's just not a thing.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is that, let's say I committed a crime in Italy, I'm in the United States, and the Italian government puts me on the Interpol Red Notice list, and I want to get into how that works. Sure. But there's no risk of an Interpol agent knocks on my door and say, you're under arrest by the order of Interpol.
No, and Interpol would never order that. Interpol doesn't have the authority to order that. They don't want to. That's just not what they're doing at all. There is a risk that there would be, if you're not a U.S. citizen, that there would be a knock on the door by someone from the Department of Homeland Security, okay. Or that there would be a knock on the door by local law enforcement, whatever law enforcement agency it might be, and move towards either an extradition proceeding or towards a removal or what people typically call a deportation proceeding.
Okay.
One of those two things could happen, but those would be by U.S. officials, not by somebody from Italy.